Hello to all. This is the tarot reading for our world for the month of September 2024. And we are in the last few weeks of summer here in West Michigan. And it is hot. Oh my. I'm trying to enjoy the heat, and I sure wish I could bottle some of it and enjoy it in January. Once again, I had many questions to choose from. But the theme running through the ones I chose ended up having to do almost every one of them with rebirth, starting over, rebuilding, regeneration. And so I think we're getting a message here. It's time to begin planning for that new world taking action. So in addition, all of the cards pointed at issues with freedom and the need to let go of unnecessary burdens and patterns that keep us stuck. So here are the questions. Number one, what do the cards have to say about the impact of a cyber attack on the US and the possible interruption of the internet, even if it's only for a time? Question number two, how safe is our water, and what do we need to know about the security of our water systems? Number three, we have many elections in many countries coming up this year. As the candidates and their campaigns try to bring people together in a positive way, what will the total effect be on the populations? Will they succeed? And question number four, what advice does the animal kingdom have for the people of the US and the countries of the West at this time? And the cards drawn were, in response to question number one, I ended up pulling two by accident, and the cards were the Hanged Man, number 12 in the Major Arcana, and the Three of Wands. So the card for question number two was the Page of Pentacles. And this was a very interesting response to that question about water. Question number three, I drew the Wheel of Fortune. And I'm going to make a little side comment that involves the Magician. But I'm not going to highlight the Magician. I just had this stray question that came up, and so I pulled a card to answer it on top of this one and got the Magician. So, and then question number four, what does the animal kingdom have to say? And I got the Bat. Woo, the Bat. Ancient symbol. Okay, so let's look into this a little deeper. Question number one. What do the cards have to say about the impact of a cyber attack on the US and the possible interruption of the internet for a time? And the card, I drew a card and one dropped out at the same time. So we have two messages in response to this question. And the cards were the Hanged Man, number 12 in the Major Arcana, and the Three of Wands. So at the time I was shuffling the cards, I was wondering if and when a cyber attack might happen and how long it might last. And that Three of Wands may indicate that such an attack would occur in 3 weeks or possibly 3 months, and or would last 3 weeks or 3 months. Wow, that's a long time. So the Hanged Man is a card we've seen several times in the last year or two, probably because it so perfectly depicts the challenge that we're facing. More than anything else, the Hanged Man represents the awakening to something, some kind of habit or pattern or information that limits our growth and evolution. Since we are asking about the impact of a cyber attack on the US, This card is telling us that without the internet, we would suddenly awaken to all the ways that the internet has interfered with our personal growth. It warns of a major adjustment to life if we have been using the internet or social media as an escape. It says that the internet is distracting us from the activities that need our full attention in order to survive this period of time. Let me say that again. Let me just ask that as a question. Are you one of those people using the internet to distract you when really you should be paying attention to other things in order to survive this time? It may be pulling our attention away from critical awarenesses of events taking place in our world that we need to know about. So the hanged man is hanging from a tall cross, which is a T-shaped cross. You know, it's not one where the crossbar, you know, is down lower from the top. So it's a T-shaped cross, and this symbolizes the end of the road and the need to make a turn, either left or right, in order to avoid a catastrophic crash. The tall cross also symbolizes that something has reached the epitome of success and a change is needed, and we should take advantage of the moment being offered to us. So, has the internet reached the epitome of success? And is it our success or the success of the surveillance organizations out there, like the CIA and other three-letter agencies? The greenery out at the far end of each arm says that something new awaits us regardless of which way we turn. Altogether, the cross itself points to an intersection, a time of decision, a difficult time, but promises a hidden gift being offered to us through the experience. The man is wearing red leggings, a blue tunic, and yellow shoes, the man hanging upside down here. The red leggings symbolize wanting to walk or run passionately in a particular direction, but being unable to move or do anything about the situation at all, which is likely how we would feel without the internet. You know, things would kind of come to a halt. The blue tunic symbolizes a difficult time of frustration or depression, likely due to feeling cut off from others. And it also calls for clarity. And the yellow shoes point to an opportunity to stop, think, and listen. You know that old saying, stop, look, and listen? This is stop, think, and listen to ourselves and our own intelligence without the input of the internet or social media. Listen to your own intelligence, your own answers. The halo around the man's head says that any attack that interrupts the internet would be a moment of enlightenment, of great intellectual and spiritual understanding that changes us and our beliefs. The warning that comes with this is to move away from complete dependency on the internet and probably social media as well. A better balance is needed, and this could be a rough transition if the dependency has left you unprepared for life in the real world rather than life online. That right leg symbolizes the conscious side of us. The left is the feeling side. So the conscious side of us. And the fact that that right leg is tied up indicates that if something happens to take down the internet, we could find ourselves in a surreal world that we could not easily navigate because all of our thinking and habits have been turned upside down. The message of the hanged man is that any interruption or takedown of the internet could signal the end of the road for our way of life. This is depicted in that tall cross, and it would be a low point in our journey. It would force us to examine ourselves, our lifestyles, our beliefs, our patterns, and our expectations about the future. And looking at the other card, the Three of Wands that came out with a hanged man, we see a man standing on the bank of a golden sea that looks more like a desert than a sea. There are ships sailing by on the golden water, and you can see a distant shore. The man is holding on to one wand, but there are two wands behind him that he is either unconscious of or is ignoring. He wears some armor under a red robe. There's a green shawl or capelet over one shoulder and a black and white checkered sash around him. The ground under him is a patchwork of barren areas and green areas, and the sky is a dirty yellow color. Wands are the suit of action, and the Three of Wands carries several messages. The basic message is that without the internet, we would be facing many unanswered and conflicting questions that block effective action and force us to face our illusions, possibly discovering that what we have viewed as a golden sea is really a desert. Is that internet a golden sea, or is it a desert? The figure has his back to us fully. I think it's the only card where the back is fully to the observer. We are the observers, indicating that something is being ignored, sometimes willfully. This may be due to distraction or illusions about the golden sea, or it could be because there is such an intense focus on moving forward with all of our assumptions that we're not paying attention to anything else. The warning here is that the two wands behind him symbolize actions being taken by others that he should take into account and stop ignoring them. That dirty yellow sky symbolizes a lack of proper thinking or the improper use of the internet as a tool that could be used to make life better. This is backed up by the two wands being ignored behind the figure on the card, the checkered sash he wears, and the patchy ground he stands on. Something checkered symbolizes not solid, not something you can count on. It's checkered. The patchy ground of barren areas next to green areas symbolizes a very uneven landscape of productivity. The barren areas represent either the inability or failure to produce something good or useful, but this is not the case for everyone. Some areas and situations are green and growing. So some people are using the internet in a very positive, productive way. I think it's really quite interesting that the Three of Wands is the one card in the deck that represents entrepreneurial spirit, the yearning for a better life, a connection to the greater world. Aren't we all connected by that internet? And the feeling of being at home wherever you live. It's almost like this is the card of the internet. If the internet were to go down, even temporarily, the wonderful entrepreneurial spirit that has taken root on the web and that feeling of being connected to the rest of the world, the feeling of being at home, that would take a serious hit. So this card calls for patience and guidance from above as we search for suitable solutions. The warning, there's a warning associated with the Three of Wands. And the warning is that the ship of possibilities and feeling connected to others may have already sailed. In other words, if we had a cyber attack, there would likely be a feeling of being stranded, of having no options, and of things coming to a standstill. Most importantly, people may have forgotten how to work together without going through the internet. Even if this were only temporary, many options and possibilities we were counting on would have to be completely rethought and reworked. The good side of this rethinking could end up expanding our horizons greatly while pushing us to see new possibilities and potentials for ourselves and the world. So together, these two cards, the Hanged Man and the Three of Wands, tell us that the impact of the internet going down would bring our communication with others, our work, and our way of thinking to an abrupt halt. We are then advised to stop, think, and listen. Listen to ourselves and one another as we work to come up with solutions, expand our radius of action, and keep maneuvering toward what we want to achieve. Question number 2, how safe is our water and what do we need to know about the security of our water systems? And the card drawn here was a Page of Pentacles, which is a very interesting card in relation to our question about water and water systems. As usual, the cards do not really address the question directly, but instead go beyond simple yes or no situations to remind us of the importance of water and the need to be vigilant in protecting both water and the body's need for water. So what do we need to know about the security of our water systems? It's up to us, is what the card is basically saying. So the card shows a young man standing in a meadow, holding a pentacle in his hands very reverently. He wears brown leggings, brown boots, and a brown belt, a green tunic, and a dramatic red scarf on his head. The sky is bright yellow, and so is the pentacle. If it were not for the outline around that pentacle, it would blend into the background and be invisible. This is just like water. It blends into the background of life and seems to be invisible. That is, until it becomes unavailable and life becomes critically endangered. The pentacle symbolizes the gift of life. And this is the card that tells us in no uncertain terms that we must stay in charge of those physical things that are critical to life. Humans, plants, and animals cannot live without water, and thus water must be seen reverently as critical, invaluable, and priceless. The brown leggings, the boots, and the belt symbolize the practical side of life. And the green tunic represents not having much experience with worrying about water or the security of our water systems. You know, water is something that just shows up when we turn on the faucet, and we've been conditioned to expect it to be there and to be safe to drink. But is this always going to be the case? Where would you go to get water if you turned on the faucet one day and no water appeared? If you collected some rainwater or went down to the nearest creek, pond, or river to get some water, how would you make sure it's safe to drink? Do you have the equipment or the chemicals to purify that water, bring it back home, and then purify it? What about taking a shower or a bath? Trying to answer these questions makes us aware that water security is extremely important. Are we paying attention? Have we set ourselves up for water security if big infrastructure services break down? The page appears to be carefully examining that pentacle, which tells us we must carefully assess our situation in regards to water and the security of our water systems. Do we have good water available to us? Does the water we drink nourish life to the fullest? Do our water systems need better security or updated methods of delivery? What do we know about water and its many isomers? Isomers are like molecular forms of water. They're all H2O, but sometimes they have extra electrons, or sometimes they have, well, look up isomer. An isomer is where the two hydrogen atoms are at one position, say they're 90 degrees apart. And on another isomer, they are 120 degrees apart or 180 degrees apart. So that's an isomer. And when those hydrogens change position from 90 degrees to 180, the water has different characteristics. So, little science lesson there. The warning that comes with this card is to be sure that we grasp the essentials and we manage them well. The page is standing in a meadow with blue mountains in the background, lots of flowers, and a bit of recently tilled soil ready for planting. Together, these symbols represent all of Mother Nature and the secrets, the treasures she holds if we choose to discover them. The Page of Pentacles also represents those who have been through massive, explosive experiences and have walked through some very thorny and challenging situations in which the great need has been to keep your eye on the ball, something we can all resonate with. This hints at future development of ourselves as creators and builders of new worlds, if we can learn from our experiences. The Page of Pentacles symbolizes mastery of creative power and the birth of new forms. It is the card of a situation that is pregnant with new life, new ideas, new identities, and new lifestyles. There's that theme again. Since our question is about water, this hints at the possibility that new forms of water are waiting to be created and could even regenerate us to the point that we feel like new humans full of new ideas. And there is an ancient prophecy that says we will discover new forms of water and the healing it brings will be nearly miraculous. So this card seems to be pointing in that direction. Okay, question number 3. We have many elections in many countries coming up this year. And as the candidates and their campaigns try to bring people together in a positive way, what will the total effect be on the populations? And the card drawn here was the Wheel of Fortune, number 10 in the major arcana, and indicating that this year of many elections is a major turning point for the various peoples of Earth. The Wheel of Fortune has a simple but profound message. It is, happiness needs to be found and recognized. It cannot be found in intellectual endeavors. It can only be found in an enlightened view of the world. Wow, that's quite a message. Happiness needs to be found and recognized, and not in intellectual stuff. It has to come from an enlightened view of the world. So I was thinking about that message, and in my own mind, I asked this quick question, which was, well, what would an enlightened view of the world be? And I ended up turning over another card just quickly, for a peek to see what it might be. And it was the Magician, which I'll mention at the end of this section. I'm not going to go into a major analysis of this, but this card pretty much speaks for itself. Okay. So when you look at the Wheel of Fortune card, you see a sphinx sitting on top of something that resembles a large clock or a wheel having 3 concentric circles, each circle symbolizing a further expansion and evolution of the human being. The innermost wheel shows only division into 6 sectors, 6 being like a signature of the 3rd dimension. The second circle, which is bigger, shows the symbols of alchemy: air, fire, water, and earth. That's the alchemy. Air, fire, water, and earth. We use those to make magic and to transform ourselves. Okay? These are the elements we deal with in the 3rd dimension. And that third circle, the big one around the other 2, shows the letters T, A, R, and O, which are used to form the Latin sentence, rotataro oratora ator. And that sentence holds the law of Hathor, the Egyptian goddess who used love, beauty, music, dance, fertility, and pleasure to rule the world and renew the cosmos. Sounds wonderful. That's the law. Those are the laws of renewal. Ah, yes. Each corner of the card holds a winged creature holding a book. There's a snake on the left side of the wheel, and Anubis, the Egyptian god who took care of the dead, on the right side. The Wheel of Fortune is the card of fate and the ability to handle your fate, not just the ability, but the necessity. So the Sphinx sitting on top of that wheel represents the pressures that humans experience in the physical realm, the pressure that comes from not understanding life or failing to attend to the demands of existence. You have to pay attention to what life demands, as long as you're here anyway. So the ancient riddle of the Sphinx says that anyone who cannot answer its riddle will be killed. Kind of blunt there. The riddle asks, here's the riddle: what has 1 voice, goes on 4 legs in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 in the evening? The answer? A human being who crawls as a baby, stands on 2 legs as an adult, and walks with a stick in old age. In other words, it's the riddle of aging. Why do we age? The biggest reason is failure to live in harmony with the laws of nature. Death is something we do to ourselves. Since our question is about the effect of political candidates and campaigns on the population, there are 2 things this card is telling us. The first has to do with the aging of our political system. Has it passed its prime? Is it hobbling along on a stick in an effort to hold itself up? Is it time for an expansion and evolution of the form of governance we have been using? The second message of this card has to do with being ready to handle our fate. Most of our fate is created by the choices and the decisions we make or fail to make. The rest of our fate comes from the circumstances beyond our control. And the task at hand in that situation is to make decisions wisely and to monitor circumstances around us, the things that might be beyond our control, so that we are always ready to handle the fate that is unfolding. Those lost in illusions will suffer harsh fates. On the left side of the wheel, we see a snake, and the snake, which represents consciousness and frequency, is headed downward, warning of destruction. On the right, the figure of Anubis, which represents reincarnation and the need for new life, is heading upward. Together, they represent the ups and downs of fate, while handing us the message that those who do not, quote, develop a talent for handling fate, end quote, are likely to be lost in the chaos and will need to start their life over, their next life. The four winged creatures in the corners of the card are each holding a book. The creatures represent the forces we must deal with in life. First force is earth, represented by the bull, water, represented by the eagle, fire, represented by the lion, and air, represented by the child. Each of these forces holds many, many lessons, and the books symbolize the unique human ability to learn from others. By reading or listening to those from the past, life can take wing, and we can raise ourselves above the mistakes of the past. Have we listened to the wisdom of the past? Are we learning from the elders and others? What effects have we observed from past political candidates? What outcomes and results have we had from past elections? Are we getting smarter as we move ahead? Or are we still looking back longingly at the normal we used to know? There are many clouds on this card, but there's also a good amount of blue sky, symbolizing the need for clarity and reminding us that the sky is the limit, meaning there is no limit. There's only opportunity. The Wheel of Fortune tells us to keep an eye out for the problem of unintended consequences. It encourages us to begin making connections between people and events while cooperating with fate. This will help us to recognize coincidences as messages from the universe, that are just in one direction or another. The Wheel of Fortune hands us a statement that might seem paradoxical. Quote, continuity is to be found in ongoing change. The changes must be made with the ancient truth in mind that the outer world is going to mirror or reflect the world within us. The changes must make sense. They must lead from one step to another until we reach new dimensions of life and discover better solutions, at which point we become the masters of our fate and solve the riddle of the Sphinx. This was backed up by the Magician card that I peeked at when I was wondering what an enlightened view of the world might be. Might it be that we have untapped powers to use? They're at our disposal, so we can handle the fates handed to us by politicians, political candidates, and elections? Question number 4. What advice does the animal kingdom have for the people of the U.S. and the West at this time? And the card drawn here was the bat, number 42 in the medicine cards. Oh my. The bat is one of the oldest and most treasured symbols of emergence from the womb-like cave after experiencing the shaman's death. Let me say that again. The bat is one of the oldest and most treasured symbols of emergence from the womb-like cave after experiencing the shaman's death. The shaman's death is not a physical death. It is a ritualistic death that brings the old life and identity to an end. Where have we heard that before? And it initiates a new way of being with new abilities and new powers. Where have we heard that before? Is this what will make us into the magicians just mentioned above, who are handling the fate handed to them by politicians and elections? Make no mistake, the shaman's death ritual is brutally challenging. It brings up every fear you have ever had. It blocks former pathways and patterns, and it breaks down all former notions of self. It tests your ability to survive, and it forces you to use every ounce of psychic energy that you can muster. The initiation ends with having to dig your own grave and then having all but your head buried in the earth for one 24-hour period, unable to respond or defend against animals prowling through the darkness. By morning, the result is total release from the former self. You are reborn with a sense of deep humility, oneness with nature, and enormous strength. The alternative to being buried is being hung upside down, which aligns with the hanged man in question number 1. Talk about coincidences. We're getting some heavy messages here. When bat energy appears, it symbolizes a ritualistic death of our way of life. This can mean everything and anything from letting go of a bad habit to being let go from your job, to a change in relationships, to loss of a home, a change of location, or a change in your nation. In every case, bat signals rebirth of some part of yourself and the death of old patterns. The warning of bat is, do not resist your destiny. You will only increase your pain and make things worse. Do not resist your destiny. Our destiny is to use all of our skills, all of our abilities and talents to the fullest. This means deciding what needs changing, the best way to bring it to an end, and then what needs creating, and the best ways to bring that into being. Since all of the countries of the West are struggling with massive social disorder, loss of trust in government, failures in the financial system, wars, and poor health, it should be quite obvious where to begin looking for needed changes. Bat's warning goes on to say that sometimes it's necessary to fly in the dark. And if you are not able to see where you're going or where it's all going, you must learn to sense the obstacles and go around them. Bat also warns against staying too long in the birth canal. It's about rebirth. Don't stay too long in that birth canal. The result could be a stillbirth. Bat urges us to decide and do before the opportunities are gone. So we are encouraged to look down the road and ask, What is the legacy I want to leave? Is this it? If not, take flight, even though it is the middle of the night. So that's it for this tarot reading. So let's sum up what we've said. Question number 1. What do the cards have to say about the impact of a cyber attack on the U.S. and the possible interruption of the internet for a time? And there were 2 cards that came up in response to this question. The cards were the Hanged Man, number 12 in the Major Arcana, and the 3 of Wands. The Hanged Man is a card of life suddenly being turned on its head, forcing many people to recognize that they were caught in a habit of constant entertainment that has prevented personal growth. It would bring pain to those entrepreneurial souls using the internet to develop small businesses. And even if it were only a temporary loss of internet, there would be the sudden realization that relying on the internet for everything might be out of balance. And that balance could be restored through connecting with the people around you, developing networks of local people. Why do we keep getting the same message over and over again? Are we doing it? The 3 of Wands adds a time element of 3 weeks or 3 months and backs up the message of the Hanged Man by urging us to be realistic about the golden future we hope for. And do not wait until the ship of possibility has sailed. Question number 2 was, how safe is our water? And what do we need to know about the security of our water systems? And the card drawn here was the Page of Pentacles, a card whose message is, take hold of essential services and structures and do not let go. It warns that water is one of those things that is typically invisible until it's unavailable. Then you have a crisis. So the page urges us to carefully assess our situation. Each one of us is in different situations. Assess your situation in regards to water, where to get it if the faucet stops, and how to purify it. We are told to keep an eye on the ball of water and remain or maintain situational awareness. Question number 3. We have many elections in many countries coming up this year as the candidates and their campaigns try to bring people together in a positive way. What will be the total effect on the populations? And the card here was actually the Wheel of Fortune, number 10 in the Major Arcana. And this signals again that we are dealing with another major challenge. This card tells us that we must become the masters of our own fate, and that we create our fate by the decisions and choices we make or don't make. This calls for an enlightened view of the world, and an enlightened view may not fit the old paradigm of politicians, political campaigns, and elections. We are encouraged to develop into magicians, also known as people who use their power. And last question, number 4. What advice does the animal kingdom have for the people of the U.S. and the countries of the West at this time? Wow, the card drawn here was the Bat, whose message is to prepare for the ritual death of the shaman. This tells us that we are about to be initiated into the realms of the shaman, a process that can be brutal, but will leave us balanced, strong, humble, and with an entirely new view, an enlightened view of ourselves and the world, something that was just called for in the Wheel of Fortune card. drawn in response to the question about politicians, political campaigns, and elections. We may have to fly through the dark night of the soul under great duress, yet without crashing into obstacles that would take us out. That energy symbolizes the death of some way of life and the need to come up with new goals, new visions, new habits, and patterns, all that are more in harmony with one another and with nature. Bats fly at night, the time of dreams, and we are encouraged to dream, to pay attention to our dreams, and to use them to build a future civilization. The message of the bat is that the universe is asking you to grow and become your future. So that's it for this month's tarot. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll take the messages to heart. Except for that second question on water, all of the cards brought up the question or the subject of rebirth or renewal in some fashion. Last month, the cards were indicating a turning point ahead. This month, they indicate that it might be a major turning point, but that the effort to make that turn will be well worth it. After all, it's not every day we get an opportunity to build a whole new world. So let's get ready. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful month. Love you.